The one thing we know for certain about droughts is that another one is coming. And if you have the money, power, and patience, you can use it as an opportunity to create a fog of confusion to advance an agenda. Although you can't see them, salmon are swimming under this bridge. But the ever-increasing demand for fresh water from California's most powerful agribusiness interests have greatly reduced the numbers of them passing through the Golden Gate. This water that salmon and people need belongs to the public. But this public trust resource has been in the sights of big agriculture for a long time. Now, their quest to control it all has reached the national stage. It's like a grand play. You see the actors walking on stage to begin their performance. A performance set up by years of careful media manipulations, overwrought hand-wringing, and day after day of misinformation and disinformation. They call it HR-1837, the San Joaquin Valley Water Reliability Act. It's the creative gift of Central Valley's self-appointed agribusiness guardian, Congressman Devin Nunes. Supporters of the bill say that it's the best way to save farms and put water to the best use. Opponents say it's nothing more than a blatant water grab. The House of Representatives, on Leap Day, spent all day debating the measure. All day, Americans could watch on C-SPAN as the Republicans in the House pushed their vision of water fairness to a predetermined outcome. And what a show it was.
Sometimes on this floor you just shake your head and wonder if you may have fallen down the rabbit hole and Alice in Wonderland is really real, where up is down and down is up and left is right and right is left and there's confusion abounding.
In 2009 and again in 2010, hundreds of billions of gallons of contracted water were expropriated from California farms and instead dumped into the Pacific Ocean in the name of the Delta Smelt.
76% of the water ends up out in the ocean. What this bill does is this allows the folks in the Delta their rights to their water. So if you vote against this bill, you're voting to take those people's water away.
This bill could bring back 30,000 jobs, and it would save millions of acre-feet of water, which has been sent to the ocean.
We'll look at more from the floor in a bit. But first, let's look at the arguments that are central to the proponents' positions. We start with the assertion that water flowing to the ocean is wasted water. The San Francisco Bay Delta estuary is unique. It's the largest and most important estuary on the west coast of both North and South America. It's a part of our home, and it needs to be taken care of. A healthy Bay Delta estuary is crucial to the life cycle of many economically important species. Just to name a few: herring, Dungeness crab, and a little silvery critter called salmon. When California's water systems were designed and built, no one really understood the impact that those engineering projects would have on the estuary. It wasn't good. Thankfully, humans have the capacity to think, to understand. And by 1992, when the Central Valley Project Improvement Act was made law by Congress, it was clear that human choices and activity had put the estuary on a path to destruction. The law was designed to undo the damage and restore the resource. Now, it's true that for some farmers in the Central Valley, contracted water deliveries are subject to adjustments. Natural drought and legally mandated environmental protections have impacted the amount of water available. But that is not a surprise. This is the contract between the federal government and the Westlands Water District that clearly stipulates a farmer's expected allotments of water is uncertain. They want to change the way the contracts are written, and they want environmental protection laws to be pushed aside so their demands for water are unimpeded. Now, No fair-minded person wants to deny water to farmers or cities. There needs to be equitable sharing of this limited resource to mitigate the pain and suffering caused to people and nature from drought and human greed.
This tragic policy fallowed hundreds of thousands of acres of some of the most fertile and productive farmland in America. It threw thousands of hard-working families into unemployment, and it contributed to rising grocery prices that families felt far beyond the congressionally created Dust Bowl of California's Central Valley.
It is dusty. It is dirty. I'm a farmer. And without water, you shut down not only my farm, but you shut down farms throughout the valley. You shut off our food supply. You shut off all of those jobs that desperately rely on water.
The proponents of the bill hammer on the notion that the so-called Congress-created Dust Bowl has been responsible for fallowed farms and created food lines filled with unemployed farm workers. They're quick to point to unemployment levels in some areas as high as 40%. But they don't tell you that in the towns that have high unemployment, it is often high, even when the water is plentiful. The recession overall, along with landowners using profits to increase use of mechanization, has been at the heart of lost jobs. Any lost job is one too many. But in 2009, the Fresno office of the California State Employment Development Department released a report showing increases in farm hiring. And at the end of the year, a year famous for all those Dust Bowl signs, Fresno County agriculture had billions of dollars in profits. Remember, too, that there was 100% unemployment for salmon fishing families because excessive water diversions made it difficult for baby salmon to get safely through the delta to the ocean and for the adults to return to their natal streams to mate.
What we have here is the fish that are killing the salmon are the bass. The bass fish do that. Let's go get the bass that are eating the smelt, that then the salmon don't have anything to eat. So this bill allows fishermen to go back to work.
My friend from California mentioned that there was no salmon fishing and it caused these problems. Well, there was no salmon fishing because the last politically motivated water policy killed 80,000 spawning salmon. It shut down the season. It shut it down. It cost people their boats. It cost people their jobs, motels, gas stations, bait shops, grocery stores. Everybody was hurt, and now we're back at it again.
This bill pretends that science does not exist. We don't believe the earth is flat. We don't believe that thunder is made by bowling balls. We know better. HR-1837 will prevent the use of the best available science by permanently limiting agencies from acting on new scientific information developed since 1994.
This is a big deal because using the best science is the only hope to solving and improving the health of California's water systems.
We are supporting sound science with HR 1837, and we are rejecting junk science that has long been foisted on the people of California. Junk science at the federal court has labeled the unlawful work of zealots. The U.S. District Court judge said, quote, "I've never seen anything like it," unquote. He went on to say that government scientists acted like zealots and had attempted to mislead and to deceive the court into accepting junk science.
It's true that a federal court judge ranted in his courtroom about testimony from scientists. His outburst is used as a gotcha moment by those pushing for greater amounts of water.
What they're referring to is not science. It is ideology masquerading as science. It is time that the ideological zealotry that threw thousands of families into unemployment be replaced with practical and fact-based solutions.
The judge, speaking as a private citizen shortly after he made his comments in court, said,
"What are we supposed to use under the Endangered Species Act? Best available science. And how do you designate and describe and identify best available science? Do you know it when you see it? I don't think so."
These are reasonable comments based on a frustrating set of information, but it does not mean that the science is bad or the result of some radical environmental plot to take water away from the Central Valley. Those very water users pushed Senator Dianne Feinstein to get the federal government to review all the science about the Delta to determine its value as actual science. And what happened?
The National Academy of Sciences says federal actions keeping water from Westside farmers were scientifically justified.
And one last comment from a scientist who has been working on water issues in California for a long time. She puts the matter in perspective.
The key element to doing science right up front, is to clearly understand what is the question that you're trying to answer. When you have different people testifying about two aspects of how do you go about protecting a species, as a scientist, they are answering different questions. It's when you take these tiny little snippets of testimony and on different topics and conflate them together that you run the risk of misinterpreting them.
We've seen what happens when science is ignored and environmental procedures are gutted for the sake of politics. In 2008 and 2009, salmon fisheries were forced to close because of low flows in the rivers. This resulted in the loss of over $500 million and nearly 5,000 jobs.
Delta communities are protected in this bill. They're concerned about water quality. This bill allows water to move through the Delta.
I've heard some of the most amazing things in the last 20 minutes that I'm absolutely sometimes unable to even respond to them.
This bill takes more of our fresh water, and what's left will be saltier and lower quality. The deterioration of the Delta water increases treatment costs by tens of millions of dollars and requires hundreds of millions of dollars in new capital investments. This bill will hurt the people.
There are many problems with HR-1837. Among the big ones, if the bill became the law of the land, the right for individual states to determine how their water is to be used would be taken away. Taken away because the federal government would be able to set state water policy.
Mr. Speaker, it is odd, very odd, to hear the argument that a state's right to deny basic freedoms to its citizens trumps the 14th Amendment to our Constitution. The reason we have a 14th Amendment is because its framers recognized that states could become abusive of the rights of their citizens, including their property rights, including their water rights, and the federal government had a responsibility and a duty to protect them.
Think deeply. Think about what happens when the federal government goes to California, the biggest state, and says, "We don't care what your laws are. We're going to tell you what to do."
When the arguments finally ended, it was time for a vote whose outcome was never in doubt. The bill was approved by the House of Representatives and sent on to the Senate. Passage in the Senate is thought to be unlikely, and the Obama administration said the president would likely veto it if it arrives on his desk. But make no mistake, H.R. 1837 will be back, maybe in a new form. For example, they can take the bill and break up its parts, so the parts can be attached to some other critical piece of legislation. The water pirates will continue to go after as much water as they can get. They will continue to ignore the pain of coastal residents in California and Oregon, people devastated by the politics of water. As a nation, we have got to do better. It's time for salmon water, now.